All right, guys, Rooster here in Tennessee. Going to do a real quick video here. Got a lot more videos to do for customers, but with this becoming a, I guess, more regular issue, figured I'd better cover it real quick and at least toss a video up with it. So, a lot of people buying amps. Some people buying amps for the first time, especially this time of the year. It's been super busy. And in the last couple weeks, I've ran into two separate issues, possibly more, with people having issues related to their amps because of the type of jumpers they're running, more specifically the length of jumper they're running. So I had a gentleman a couple weeks ago, you guys may remember, he had a 2-pill. He sent it back to me because the relays were sticking on it in his mobile, and he ended up switching from 3-foot jumpers to 6-foot jumpers and did a couple other things, and his amp works fine now. So he sent it here, it worked fine on the dummy load, and when he got it back, he made those adjustments, and then he reported back to me and told me the amp was working 100%. More times than not, that is the case. If something works fine here on the dummy load, 99 times out of 100 when you get it, if everything you have is set up properly to run an amp, you won't have any trouble. Although, like I said, here recently, I've had some people that have been getting amps. It doesn't matter, Carl built, Fat Boy, whatever. They've been running into some sticky relay issues, and one thing that can cause that is jumpers. So, very important, very important. If you're going to buy a new amp or used amp, whatever, maybe the first time you've ever ran an amp, your jumper can make or break your system. And when I'm referring to jumpers, I'm speaking about the patch cable that goes to and from your radio and to and from your amp to your watt meter or your amp to your antenna. So I had a gentleman hit me up today. I actually did a video on his amp last week. It checked out fine. He contacted me today and said that the relay was sticking on the amp and that the LED light went out. So the LED light I'm not too concerned about. That happens. I've had them come directly into me and the LED goes out here. But he said that the relay was sticking. So first, obviously the first thing that comes into everybody's mind when they have trouble with an amp is the amp's fault. And I have been guilty of doing it myself. Just a couple days ago, I had a 4-pill Fat Boy hooked up, and I thought there was something wrong with it. Wasn't getting any output out of it. It was drawing current, but not showing any output. I double-checked everything, and ended up, guess what? I had a bad jumper. Now, this is just a little cheap LMR 240 Ultraflex jumper that I've been using to test with for 5 or 6 months, but it was just its time to give up. So who knows what's wrong with it. I haven't owned it out or anything, but it is now faulty, and I initially thought that I was having trouble with the amp and was going to have to send it back in, but it ended up being a bad jumper, okay? So this is a 6-foot jumper. I always recommend people to run a minimum of 6 feet. But my point being, I've almost been guilty of doing the same thing. You have trouble and you just automatically assume that the amp, there's something wrong with it. Well, first thing you need to ask is, why was it working well when Rooster tested it, and now it's not working well when I got it? Well, both these last two scenarios, like I mentioned, the one gentleman had 3-foot jumpers. The guy I talked to today, I said, are you by chance running 3-foot jumpers? And he said, no, I'm running 2-foot jumpers. So they were 2 feet in length. So that is probably his issue that's causing that. I'm not going to go into like the scientific reason. I'm not an amp builder, but I can just tell you guys, people will argue with you until they're blue in the face, and they'll tell you that you can run whatever jumper length that you want to run, and you're not going to have issues. But I'm speaking from experience, folks. Like I said, I'm not an amp builder, but I am speaking from experience. 3-foot jumpers are prone to cause issues, okay? If you're running, I don't recommend anything less than 6 feet. 6 feet, almost rarely ever have issues with 6 feet, okay? Some people say run a 12-foot jumper. That's fine too. 9 feet, everybody's got their preference. I always tell people to run 6 feet or more. You can even be more specific with it and take an antenna analyzer and trim them until they have no reactance and everything is balanced out if you're that specific. I don't get into that specific, don't get that picky about it. I just tell people run a 6 foot or longer. you're running jumpers like this, little 3-foot guys like this, you're buying $300 and $400 and $500 amps, you are literally pissing your money away, and you're going to have issues. You're risking tearing your amp up. You're going to run into a bunch of headaches like some people have been doing recently, relay sticking and everything else. And I've seen it happen so many times, guys, while I'm doing a video of it. I have got amps back that work perfectly when I send them out. Somebody sends it back, says the relay sticking, it won't key up, something like that. And then I test it again here on the dummy load, and it works fine, okay? I have also had people send them back to, you know, whoever. We'll just say Fat Boy, for example. Send amps back to Fat Boy and say, hey, the relay's sticking. Fat Boy gets it, it works perfectly at their shop, they box it up, send it right back. Because there's nothing wrong with it. It's on the customer's end or the operator's end. And that is not always the case. I'm not always saying that there's not anything, nothing ever goes wrong with these amps. That couldn't be further from the truth. Stuff happens. Pills blow, relays fail, you know, parts are out of tolerance, stuff happens. You know, it's just part of it, just part of radio. But one thing you can avoid that you can control is making sure that you have quality coax, okay? And again, my recommendation, 6-foot minimum. Something else, and I've gone over this before, everyone needs access to one of these, okay? Checking it with the dosimeter ain't good enough. You know, your SWR shows a 1-1 on the dosi, a 1-2 on the dosi, and you think, all right, man, I'm ready to rock. Checking it on the face of these radios isn't good enough, okay? I don't care if it's a Striker or a Cobra 29, the SWR meter in those radios, you know, who knows how they're calibrating them. I've had 3 or 4 different radios show 3 or 4 different SWR readings. I've had some of them go into SWR protection, and there's like 1 watt of reflect coming back to them. So don't trust the SWR meter in the radio. Don't trust the SWR meter on a dosi. Guess what a dosi doesn't show you? It won't show you the impedance, okay? And that's just as important as the standing wave, okay? You can have a decent SWR and have wonky or off, you know, off kilter impedance. So you want to be close to 50 or 52 ohms. Some coax is 50 ohms, some coax is 52. Most antennas are set to be a 50 ohm load, but it usually somewhere in between, you know, could be 50.5, 51 ohms, whatever. Okay, I checked the guy's SWR yesterday with an analyzer, and his SWR wasn't bad. He said that it was good on a dosi, and it was like a 1-1, 1-2, but on certain frequencies, his impedance was like 38 ohms, 42 ohms, 38 ohms, and you know, on other frequencies it was 52, 54, 50, something like that. But on certain channels his impedance was way off, which can also cause issues. If you have an impedance mismatch, that can cause your amp to act funny. It can give you weird power ratings, and can also be related to relay sticking. So there's a whole lot that goes into it. When you start having issues, it's not always just, oh, something wrong with the amp, I gotta send my amp back, there's something wrong with it. Like I said, more times than not, if it works perfectly here on the dummy load, way more times than not, it should work perfectly when you get it. That's why I do the test videos before I ship them out. Now, stuff happens, stuff gets shook loose in shipping from time to time. Not saying that never happens, but more times than not, if it works perfectly on a dummy load, as long as your setup is set up properly, you guys shouldn't have any issues with it. Okay, I'm going to get back to doing more videos. Just wanted to stop and do this real quick because it's something I've been running into. Don't buy coax jumpers that are 3 feet, 2 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, whatever. You know, you might be able to get by with it. You know, people do it all the time, and I'm sure somebody will get in here and argue with me and say, man, I've been running 3-foot jumpers since 1965, and I've been in radio for 45 years, and I've always ran 3-foot jumpers. Okay, well, if you have, that's great. You know, I'm very happy that you've never had any issues, but I'm just telling you, the 20-plus years, however long I've been in it, 22, 23 years, I have seen short jumpers cause all kinds of issues with transistor amps. I don't care if it's a Palomar, a Texas Star, a Fat Boy, a Dave made, X-Force, 123 Chicago, Carl built, does not matter. I have seen short jumpers and poorly made jumpers cause issues with amps. So your station is only as strong as its weakest point. So you can have a $5,000 amp, a $2,000 antenna, and you know, a $500 radio. But if you're gonna run a little cheap piece of coax, none of that matters, cause it can end up biting you in the rear. All right, that's it, guys. Just a little rant. Got on my soapbox about the coax jumpers. Hope everybody has a good one. Questions, comments, complaints, shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. Catch you guys out there. See you, bye.